Amy's coffee tray hung in the air. "Who was that?" she whispered. Castillo didn't answer. He looked at the corner booth. Walter had opened his notebook. His pen was moving. Nothing had changed, or everything had changed, but only for those who knew how to look. That evening, Castillo sat alone in the diner when Amy came over. "Who is he really?" she asked, this time with seriousness. Castillo thought for a moment. 32 years, he said finally. 145 solved cases, 87 agents he trained, and now here." He looked out the window. "Protecting the town, but he thinks nobody needs to notice." Amy looked at the corner booth. It was empty now. Walter had long since gone, but his cup was still there, cold coffee, half full. "He was here every day," said Amy slowly. "Every single day." "Yes," said Castillo, "every day. Some people spend their lives being seen. Others choose the opposite. They learn to be invisible because they know the real work is done not in the noise, but at the edge of the silence. Walter Kane spent 32 years in dark rooms, sealed files, and minds nobody else wanted to enter. When he retired, he owed the world nothing. But he still settled in a small town, still sat at the same table every morning, still read every passing face, noted every small irregularity, and quietly pointed to every small danger. Because for some people, service is not a duty, it is a habit. And habits, as Walter Kane himself said, don't die easy. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to Modern Faces of Life for more powerful stories of courage, sacrifice, and the extraordinary people living among us. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never forget the quiet heroes hiding in plain sight. One is between 20 and 25. The third is probably from outside, doesn't know the town well. Castillo froze. "You didn't look at the file." "I don't need to," said Walter. "I've been hearing about the same burglaries for 3 weeks. Small town, sound travels. But the left hand, the age estimate. The broken glass at the reading room. The angle of the brake shows left side pressure. The items stolen suggest inexperience, but no panic, so young but composed. And in the last 3 incidents, the escape route is always in the same wrong direction. Someone who knows the town wouldn't make that mistake." Castillo's hands trembled as he took notes. These couldn't be coincidences. "Walter," he said slowly, "who are you really?" The man took the last sip of his cold coffee, set the cup on the table, and for the first time looked directly into Castillo's eyes. "I'm retired," he said. "Isn't that enough?" What would you have done sitting at that table, looking into those eyes, feeling that silence that sees everything, analyzes everything, but says nothing? Would you have said just a tired retiree, or would you have seen someone carrying decades of dark rooms and solved files behind them? Castillo found the answer by accident. One evening, he was having coffee with an older FBI agent visiting from the regional office. The conversation turned to the town. The town turned to Walter. Castillo said the name. The agent's coffee cup went still on the table. "Did you say Walter Kane?" he asked. "Yes, the old man in the corner booth. Do you know him?" The agent was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke slowly. "Walter Kane spent 32 years with the FBI," he said. "Behavioral Analysis Unit. 144 serial cases, all 144 solved." He paused. "Before he retired, he trained 87 agents. Every one of them is still active today." Castillo held his breath. "Why is he here?" he asked. The agent shrugged. "I don't know. But if Walter Kane has settled somewhere, there's a reason." That night, Castillo couldn't sleep for a long time. Something was sitting in his mind. Walter came to the diner every morning, sat at the same table every morning, watched everyone who passed through the town every morning, and nobody took him seriously. But Walter Kane saw everything. The next morning, Castillo arrived at the diner earlier than usual. Walter wasn't there yet. As Amy poured coffee, Castillo turned to her. "That man in the corner," he said. "Walter, why do you think he's here every day?" Amy laughed. "Like I said, nothing else to do." "What if he has something to do?" said Castillo. "But we just can't see it?" Before Amy could answer, the door opened. Walter walked in, worn jacket, thin notebook, cold coffee. He walked to the corner booth, sat down, and looked out the window. Castillo stood and walked to his table. Walter didn't look up. "I know who you are now," said Castillo quietly. Walter said nothing. 144 cases, said Castillo. "All solved." Walter held his cold coffee, was quiet for a moment, then spoke. 145, he said. "The last one came after I submitted my retirement paperwork. I wasn't supposed to take it." He paused. "I took it." Castillo sat down. "Why here?" Walter looked out the window. Outside, the town was waking up. People heading to work, children running to school, life flowing in its own rhythm. "Things happen in small towns, too," said Walter, "even when nobody's looking." "And why the corner booth?" Castillo asked. Walter smiled slightly for the first time, very small, almost imperceptible. "From the corner you can see everything," he said, "but the man in the corner stays invisible." Weeks passed. Small things changed in Millfield. Castillo was solving cases faster, asking better questions. Sometimes he sat with Walter at the diner. Sometimes they just shared the same silence. Rumors spread through town. People wondered how the young detective had gotten so good so fast. Nobody looked at the old man in the corner booth. Amy still said, "Nothing else to do." The diner owner said he thought Walter sometimes forgot to pay his bill. But one morning, the regional FBI chief came to town for an official visit, short and routine. He stopped at the diner for coffee before heading to the office. He walked in, looked around, and his eyes stopped at the corner booth. He went still. Then he straightened. And in front of the surprised eyes of everyone in the diner, he walked directly toward the old man in the corner. Stopped in front of him, extended his hand. "Kane," he said, "I never thought I'd find you here." Walter shook his hand. "It's a good town," he said. The chief looked around, saw Castillo, saw Amy, saw the diner owner. Then turned back to Walter. "Still?" he asked quietly. Walter lifted his cold coffee. "Habits don't die easy," he said. The chief nodded, smiled, and left. Silence fell over the diner. The diner filled up at the same time every morning. Waitresses called out orders, plates clattered, the coffee machine hummed without pause. And in the corner booth, the same man always sat. A worn jacket, a cold coffee, and a thin notebook nobody ever saw him open. The new waitress noticed him on her first day. "That man is here every single day," she said to the older one. "Who is he?" The woman shrugged. "I don't know. He just sits, watches, and never says anything." She laughed. "Probably nothing else to do." In the corner, the old man lifted his cold coffee without looking up. He said nothing. Because he didn't need to. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Modern Faces of Life so you never miss these powerful stories of courage and hidden strength, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Walter Kane was 67 years old and had moved to Millfield 2 years ago. Nobody had asked where he came from. He hadn't offered it. He had rented a small house, settled in with minimal furniture, and started showing up at the diner's corner booth every morning at exactly 7 o'clock. His order never changed. Black coffee, 2 eggs, 1 slice of toast. He never drank the coffee while it was hot. Nobody had asked why. He hadn't explained. Millfield was a small town. Everyone knew everyone, or at least believed they did. Walter was the exception to that rule. 2 years had passed, and the town could not honestly say it knew him. He sat in the diner, wrote things in his notebook, and watched the street through the window. Sometimes he left without speaking to anyone for hours. Sometimes someone spoke to him, and he answered politely, but he never gave more than was needed. Just enough. Exactly enough. The young waitress, Amy, had been curious about Walter from the first week, but her curiosity had gradually given way to mild dismissal. "He's retired. Nothing to do," she had said one afternoon in the kitchen. "He comes here every day because sitting at home is even more boring." The other waitress laughed. The cook shrugged. Nobody disagreed, because nobody had ever seen Walter Kane's files. Nobody knew how many times his name appeared in the FBI's most sealed cases. The first crack appeared the morning the young detective Ray Castillo walked into the diner. Castillo was 28, 3 years on the job, and the case in his hands had kept him awake for 3 days. A missing child in Millfield. The leads were gone, his superiors were impatient, the town was uneasy. Castillo dropped into an empty booth, spread the file open in front of him, and buried his face in his hands. "Looks like a hard night." The voice was calm, low, and unexpectedly clear. Castillo looked up. 2 tables away, an old man in a worn jacket was holding a cold coffee. His eyes were on the file, not on Castillo. "Thanks," Castillo said briefly, and looked back down. "The photograph is upside down," the man said. Castillo stopped. He looked at the photograph in the file. It was upside down. How had he seen that? The man was 2 tables away. "What?" said Castillo. "The photograph on the table," the man said, his voice even. "It's upside down, and the mark in the upper left corner is probably not a shoe." Bicycle tire. Castillo looked at the photograph, then at the man, then back at the photograph. "Who are you?" he asked. The man took a sip of cold coffee. "Walter," he said. "Just Walter." Castillo didn't spend much time on the man that morning. He thanked him, made a note, and left. But the bicycle tire lead was right. In the next 6 hours, the case made its first real progress. As Castillo reported this to his superiors, a small question stirred inside him. How had that man known? The next morning he came to the diner early. Walter was in the corner booth. His coffee was cold, his notebook open. Castillo sat across from him. "How did you notice it yesterday?" he asked directly. Walter turned a page. "Notice what?" "The tire. The angle of the photograph and the direction of the shadow," said Walter, as if discussing the weather. The depth of the pressure mark was less than a motorized vehicle, more than an adult footprint. A bicycle was the most logical option. Castillo looked at him. "Where do you learn things like that?" Walter closed his notebook. "An old habit," he said. Castillo didn't press further that day, but something had locked into place in his mind. This man was not ordinary. Days passed. Castillo began coming to the diner every morning. Sometimes he asked Walter a question, sometimes he just occupied the same space. Walter never spoke first, never offered advice. But when Castillo asked something, the answer always came, short, precise, and always correct. One morning, Castillo arrived with another case file, a small burglary series in town, not much importance, but it hadn't been solved. He dropped the folder on the table. Walter didn't even look at it. 3 people, he said. 1 is left-handed.